Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I have one of my good friends, Mrs. Kelli Krueger, she is the Director of Education with ACA International, a trade association in the receivables space, representing a lot of the major collection agencies, both large and small, throughout the country. How are you doing today, Kelli?
I'm doing great. How are you, Adam?
Oh, I can't complain. It's another day in paradise. For anybody that's not familiar with you who might be watching this, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to the seat that you're in today?
I mean, a little bit about myself. Well, I came to ACA 2 years ago, right in the middle of the pandemic. So that was super interesting. But before that, 26 years at CBE companies. I started at CBE in marketing. I was answering requests for proposals. And it's interesting, if anybody gets to know me, they'll probably find out that writing answers to a request for proposals is not a good fit for me. It's me sitting at a desk, me not talking to anybody else. And I remember I was like, there's something else for me here. And I was in a collection agency, and everybody says this, nobody wants to stay in a collection agency. So I'm like, I'm just going to give it a year. And my president at the time was, he's still the president of CBE, is Tom Penaluna. And he was asking me one day if I ever thought about like creating a training program for CBE. At the time, we were about 50 employees. When I left, I think we were about 1,500. So we grew quite a bit. And he asked me if I'd be interested in creating a training program. And I remember thinking to myself, no, scared to death of public speaking, so scared. So I'm like, but of course, I never say no to a challenge ever. So anything I'm scared of, I always say yes to. So I said yes. And that was in 1999. And I have been pretty much in the training world since then. But, I got such a great opportunity with CBE because I got to touch every single part of the industry, of the agency. I mean, other than finance and IT, because, they wouldn't still be open if I had done that. But like I was in HR, I was an ops director, I was an ops manager, I was in training, I was compliance for a long time. I was the recruiter. I had so many hats, and because of that, I've gained so much experience that brought me to where I am at ACA, which when I got offered the job at ACA, I'm like, this is the grand poobah of jobs for me. Like I say that I'm Little Mermaid, not just because of my hair, because I want to be where the people are.
Yeah.
And ACA allows me to do that. Unfortunately, I started in the middle of COVID when all the people were, quarantined in their homes. So 2 years of getting to know people through Zoom. And I'm so glad, I hate to say that I'm so glad COVID happened, because I'm not. But the one thing that did change is it caused us to all leave our phones behind and get on video chat. So it was new to everybody, and everybody was scared of it. But now it's like, I can't imagine making a phone call. It's all Zoom.
That's where this series was born. I never would have been able to get, all of these A-list people, including yourself, onto a video chat. Everybody wanted to just operate on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized that everybody was getting comfortable, I'm like, let's try something new. Let's get everybody on a video chat and not just see the same kind of webinar presenters that we all see, which will lead us to our topic here. But for anybody who's watching, who's not familiar with ACA, and I'm sure there's not all that many, can you tell us a little bit about ACA International and what you guys do there?
I mean, we're the Association for the Credit and Collection Industry. My job is education, so it's really easy for me to talk about the education side, but we are so much more than that. It's we have an amazing advocacy team. We have an amazing compliance team. It's like, that's really where we shine, is making sure that, and I'm probably not going to put the words right on this, but making sure that people understand the big impact of decisions make on our industry. So I'm sure you all know Leah Dempsey, and she's out there fighting for what's right for the industry, and making sure that people are educated on the impacts that they make and the decisions that they make. So I want to say education is a big deal, but it's really that side of our business is probably the most important.
Sure. Well, education is a big deal too, because it's a very unique industry, right? And we have a kind of a very narrow focus, and we're incredibly regulated. And I think that sometimes we've been regulated for so long that we lose perspective. I was having lunch with a friend recently, and they were telling me about some issue that had happened in their office, and I said, "Well, just check the cameras." And they're like, "Well, we don't have cameras." And I'm like, "What do you
Yeah.
mean? Can't like, we'll check the cameras outside of that department." "Well, we don't have cameras there either." And
Hmm.
it was at that moment that it kind of clicked for me that like we've lived in a regulated environment so long that we are now caged birds.
Yeah.
But the reason I wanted to have you on a roundtable was because you and I face the same problem quite often, right? Between my marketing company and receivables info and all the other stuff that I work on, and with what you're doing at ACA, we're constantly trying to do new things, right? We're constantly trying to come up with new ideas and new ways of doing things, and it's not always easy. It's not always easy for us to come out with a new podcast or a particular webinar series, or to come up with the ideas that drive these things home. And so, since we both kind of live in that world, I thought it'd be a fun conversation for us to have. And maybe we can kind of kick it off talking about, the change in perspectives, because the average age has started to change, and the people that are getting involved might be a little bit different. For the last, let's call it 5 to 7 years, the total focus of the world in our space has been on compliance,
Hmm.
right? And it was funny because at the RMAI conference recently, I was having a conversation with a bank, and we were talking about RFIs and the RFI process and the pitch decks and those kinds of things. And they said to me, "Well, compliance is kind of table stakes these days." And
Yeah.
made me realize that, like, okay, well, I'm not, we're not the only ones that are seeing it. We're starting to see this in more ways. So, as things have started to shift, what's been your experience in terms of trying to get new things out the door and getting people to adopt these new ways of communicating?
So I think there's a couple of ways you can look at new. I agree. Compliance is table stakes. It's almost permissions to play.
Mhm.
Like if you think about what used to make us stand out as an agency above everybody else, it was how do you do your compliance, and how compliant are you? And now if you're not compliant, you're not in business.
Mhm.
So that's table stakes. I say permissions to play. When I think about what agencies need more now than ever, that used to be considered fluffy, is honestly the leadership stuff.
Mhm.
Like I always get frustrated. My career as a trainer, when Tom said, "Do you want to become a trainer at CBE?" When I was scared to death. It wasn't to teach people systems. It wasn't teaching people compliance. It was honestly to teach them how to negotiate and how to communicate.
Mhm.
And I have my master's in neurolinguistic programming, which is more of a therapeutic kind of. Do you
Oh my
know what
God.
that is?
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation that
You
we're
know?
going to have because I studied that for like 4 years in college. But
Oh my gosh, it's it's a game changer in regards to understanding humans. And I always say that, we all carry our baggage, but our baggage is who we are, and it's our communication style.
yeah.
And I think that we need to spend more time being creative on how do we help people communicate better on the phone, communicate better with their clients, communicate better with their employees. And I think we look at that as fluffy, and that's what I get frustrated with, is that it's really easy if someone doesn't know how to work a computer or doesn't know the collection system. It's really easy to turn around and sit down and teach them how to do that. Like those are skills that are teachable, but to help someone get along better with people, or to have a really good conversation with a consumer, that stuff is hard. That's
Mhm.
hard to teach people how to do. So we need to find new and creative ways to do that, and we also need to have a paradigm shift in regards to that's the stuff we need to spend more time on, the
I
people.
think too many people in the past have tried to teach some of these things, right? Like a neurolinguistic programming background is very unique in this industry. Honestly, that just blew my mind a little bit. But my point being that I think a lot of people have taken the leadership material, and it's one of those things that's like overspoken and under taught, meaning everybody wants to talk about leadership and we're growing leaders and these kinds of things, but very rarely, and maybe we'll go down the rabbit hole on another day, but rarely are they getting into the Douglas McGregor management theory, the X's and Y's, and identifying these individual people and how that applies to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, I realize we're going a little nerd on the management style and theory, but it is something that, leadership is something that you can teach, but there's also an intrinsic value to the individual that you have to try and extract, right? It's inside of everybody. When it comes to systems and technology and all of that, that's something that you can add to somebody. But when it comes to leadership style and the understanding of the interpersonal skills required for negotiations, that's about extracting out of somebody, right? Like it's already in there and you got to chisel it out versus trying to add it on top of somebody. And I think that's where it's gotten lost in the past, is everybody's coming out and talking about leadership that maybe has not led a large and a small team, right? Because it does require some perspective as to how those things start to happen. But then also the communication channels themselves have started to change over the last couple of years. And so, 2000, or like end of let's call 2009, 2010, before that was MySpace, then you had Facebook, but even the application of these social media channels into reality has changed, right? Because the average age of a Facebook user has grown exponentially. And now you're seeing that same thing happening with Instagram, because you had younger individuals moving over to there. But then how do you feed the content? Because when you're dealing with a Facebook or a LinkedIn, right, which is a much more professional network, you have like this text content and you can link articles and those kinds of things. But then how are you going to feed the TikToks of the world, the Instagrams, the Snapchats, right? How are you going to start to create that content? And even as a marketing company, we're constantly struggling with that idea behind, hey, we really want to get you active on Instagram, but A, it's not going to help your search engine optimization, and two, where are we going to get the images from, right? Like you can't just pull stock photos and feed an Instagram channel and have it be successful. So tell me a little bit about kind of like what you've seen as the agencies or even internally have gone through the process of trying to explore and identify the value proposition of these new communication mediums.
It's interesting because when we talk about Facebook, which is what agencies are starting to do now, is they create their internal Facebook pages, but we need to start branding our agencies out to externally on Facebook. Now, is it going to reach the market you're looking for? Now, you're not going to get clients off of Facebook, but what are we in the middle of is a great recession or a great resignation. So you're going to create a brand for yourself on Facebook. Now, think about the age bracket that you're going to hit. And so you can't just do Facebook. You need to do Facebook. You need to do Instagram, and no stock photos. But let me just tell you, there's some people in your company who can probably take some pretty cool pictures.
No question.
But of course we can't have our cell phones in the building. So, you just got to get creative. Now, I think we should talk about, Snapchat. Snapchat is interesting because it's one and done. You watch it and then it's gone. You could create groups like that. I think it's more of a retention, team building kind of thing. You got to be really careful. I don't know how you can manage that. Now that's my HR hat. Like, how do I manage employees not doing bad things on there? But TikTok, oh my gosh. If you're not on TikTok, if people are not on TikTok, stay away, but don't, because it's the best thing ever. Like hours pass by. But I seriously wrote an entire training with TikTok videos. I wrote it's called Imposter Syndrome. And the whole thing is just TikTok videos.
Very interesting. Now you can leverage that same kind of content on Instagram as well, using their Reels system. Right. So there's a lot of crossover between these platforms as they've tried to compete with one another.
Yeah, same thing with Facebook. You can get lost in Facebook videos as well. Now, what I think is interesting is we can get a message out to the masses through TikTok. You can't be, but it's hard to say, I'm going to throw out content and hope that it hits the right people. because it's not going to. It's, it's built on algorithms and what people like, and what they watch for a long period of time. So, having a TikTok on, how to pay off your debt more effectively might not be, a hot one. But let me just tell you, get on TikTok. All of you, get on TikTok and look, just type in collections. They're out there. There's a lot of TikTokers out there talking about how to not pay your debt.
There's a lot of that on YouTube too. We
Mhm.
recently went through an exercise where I paid 20 different people of different age brackets and backgrounds to go and find me good financial literacy content. And what
Mhm.
came back shocked me. Shocked me. I mean,
Mhm.
you got people that, knew a debt collector in high school and now they're on YouTube making videos about how to not pay your debts. But you're also going to find a lot of
Mhm.
attackers out there too, because you're going
Yeah.
to find that some of these, I'm going to throw up the air quotes here, these consumer attorneys that are creating videos in order to convince consumers to sue you versus pay you. And
Yeah.
really the only way to fight back is to create your own YouTube videos.
Yeah. And create your own TikToks. Because
Mhm.
what's sad is that they're being misguided.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you were a collector when you were in high school, or you had a friend that was a collector in high school. Well, oh my gosh, just imagine what has changed just since November.
I was going to say, what's changed in the last 3-4 months compared to how
Yes.
things have changed in the last 2 years, comparing that
Yeah,
to the 2 years previously. This industry moves at a lightning pace.
it does. I do a course called How to Work with Debt Collectors. I do it for people who are just freshly released out of prison.
Mhm.
And let me just tell you, the one thing I always tell them is your goal is the same as our goal. Like you do not want to be in debt, and we don't want you in debt. So,
Mhm.
listen and help us find the solution for you. And but I've had them say, well, on TikTok or on Facebook or on YouTube, they say the best way to do it is to sue you. Well, I mean, what helps you and what hurts you?
Yeah, it's to me, it's always bad information, right? Send
Mhm.
a cease and desist. Well, if you send a cease and desist, then I only have, as a debt buyer, I only have the option to either sell the account or sue you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, guess which one I'm probably going to use, right? Now that resale
Mhm.
restrictions are in place. So,
Oh.
it's a little scary as to how they kind of look at that. But I think that the agencies can be looking at these social media platforms and these communication platforms from the perspective of defending their own reputations, because reputation defense is, I always talk about the search results of a collection agency being a lot like a game of
Mhm.
Monopoly. I don't need to control Boardwalk. I need to control the entire side of the board. And in order to do that, I need additional pieces of real estate. And
Mhm.
so some of the pieces of real estate can be our LinkedIn profile, our
Yes.
Facebook profile. I have started to steer away from Twitter, mostly because we had like 36 accounts get suspended on Memorial Day for posting American flags a few years ago. And so basically we've just abandoned Twitter altogether.
Mhm.
That, and it's not really operating with Google all that well anymore.
Mhm.
But I'm very interested, and I think this also is going to tie really well into the session that we'll be presenting at ACA Ignite next week,
Mhm.
which is talking about kind of how to find new clients for your collection agency. And we'll be talking about some of these platforms and opportunities that are available. I'm really looking forward to seeing you out there. I'm sure you are a superstar at this event and
Oh,
probably very busy, but I hope we get a chance to sit down, have a cup of coffee, and talk
definitely.
about social media and content.
Absolutely. We'll definitely get to chance to talk and connect. And I don't know, everybody's a superstar. That conference is put on by members. It's and speakers. So if it wasn't for the members and the subject matter experts that submit to speak, that event wouldn't be what it is. We've got some great minds in this industry. We've got some great innovative thinkers. If you're going to miss it, you're going to miss some great information, and you're going to get left behind. So, that's me motivating you through benefits and consequences, right? Like, tell them so you can get new information, but if you miss it, you're going to get left behind. So,
The fear of
that,
missing out is real.
yes, that fear of missing out is real. So, and you're going to connect with new people, and we are an industry of people who share. So, the more people you know, the more information you have.
That is the truest statement. This is an industry like I've never experienced before, where everybody really is trying to help each other. And I think it's because we all face the same challenges and we all compete with respect.
Yep.
And I think that's really unique for any type of industry. I've just never experienced anything like it before anywhere in the world.
I know. It is amazing. I've learned so much from the people in this industry just since I've been I mean, I learned a ton at AC or at CBE, but just the masses of people who are willing to share their knowledge with me every day. It's mind blowing to me. So,
Well, I am very much looking forward to seeing you out there, and I really appreciate you coming on and participating in a chat with me today. You are clearly trying new things on the regular, and I think we're going to have to do a follow up at some point and talk about neuro-linguistic
oh my
programming
gosh, that's going to have to be
specifically.
2 hours.
That's okay. All right, look, let's do a webinar. I've done a lot of homework on that myself, so I think it's just such an interesting approach to negotiations and other things. So before I go down the rabbit hole, I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you next week, and we will talk soon.
All right. Thank you, Adam.
Absolutely. For those of you that are watching, if you have any additional questions you'd like to see us answer, feel free to leave them in the comments below here on LinkedIn or YouTube. If you have any additional guests that you'd like to see me interview or topics that you'd like to see me cover with Kelli, feel free to leave those in the comments below, and we will continue to create great content for a great industry. But until next week, Kelli, I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.